The History of the Kings of Britain, Book 10, Chapter 3. Tidings were brought unto Arthur, that a certain giant of marvellous bigness hath arrived out of the parts of Spain, and, moreover, that he hath seized Helena, niece of Duke Hoel, out of the hands of them that had charge of her, and hath fled with her unto the top of that mount that is now called of Michael, whither the knights of the country had pursued him. Howbeit, naught might they prevail against him, neither by sea nor by land. For when they would attack him, either he would sink their ships with hugeous rocks, or slay the men with javelins or other weapons, and moreover devour many half alive. Accordingly, in the following night at the 2nd hour, Arthur took with him Kay the seneschal and Bedivere the butler, and issuing forth of the tents, unknown to the others, started on his way towards the mount. For of such puissance was his own valour that he deigned not lead an army against such monsters, as holding himself singly endowed for their destruction, and being minded to spirit up his men to follow his example. Now, when they came anigh to the mount, they espied a great fire of wood a-blazing there, and another smaller fire upon a smaller mount not far away from the first. So, being in doubt which were the one whereupon the giant had his one, they sent Bedivere to spy out the certainty of the matter. He, therefore, finding a little boat, oared him first unto the smaller mount, for none otherwise might he attain thereunto, seeing that it was set in the sea. When he began to climb up towards the top, he heard above him the ullaloo of a woman wailing above him, and at first he shuddered, for he misdoubted him the monster might be there. But quickly recovering his hardihood, he drew his sword from the scabbard, and mounted to the very top, whereon naught found he save the fire of wood they had espied. But close thereby he saw a newly made grave mound, and beside it an old woman weeping and lamenting, who, so soon as she beheld him, stinted her tears forthwith, and spake unto him of this wise: O unhappy man, what evil doom hath brought thee unto this place? O, thou that must endure the pangs unspeakable of death, woe is me for thee! Woe is me, that a monster so accursed must this night consume the flower of thine youth. For that most foul and impious giant of execrable name shall presently be here, that did carry hither unto this mount the niece of our Duke, whom I have but just now sit thence buried in this grave, and me, her nurse, along with her. On what unheard of wise will he slay thee and tarry not? Alas for the sorrow and the doom! This most queenly foster child of mine own, swooning with terror when this abhorred monster would fain have embraced her, breathed forth the life that now can never know the longer day that it deserved. Ochon for mine own soul, other life, mine other sweetness of gladness. Flee thou, my beloved, flee, lest he find thee here, and rend thee limb from limb by a pitiable death. But Bedivere, moved to the heart deeply as heart of man may be moved, soothed her with words of comfort, promising her such cheer as speedy succour might bring, returned unto Arthur, and told him the story of what he had found. Howbeit, Arthur, grieving over the damsel's hapless fate, bade them that they should allow him to attack the monster singly, but if need were, should come unto his rescue, and fall upon the giant like men. They made their way from thence unto the greater mount, and giving horses in charge to their squires, began to climb the mount, Arthur going first. Just then that unnatural monster was by the fire, his chops all besmeared with clotted blood of half-eaten swine, the residue whereof he was toasting on sprits over the live ember. The moment he espied them, when naught was less in his thought, he hastened him to get hold of his club, which 2 young men could scarce have lifted from the ground. The king forthwith unsheathed his sword, and covering him with his shield, hurried as swiftly as hurry he might, to be beforehand with him, and prevent his getting hold of the club. But the giant, not unaware of his intention, had already clutched it, and smote the king upon the cover of his shield with such a buffet as that the sound of the stroke filled the whole shore, and did utterly deafen his ears. But Arthur, thereupon, blazing out in bitter wrath, lifted his sword and dealt him a wound upon his forehead, from whence the blood gushed forth over his face and eyes in such sort as well nigh blinded his sight. Howbeit, the blow was not deadly, for he had warded his forehead with his club, in such wise as to escape being killed outright. None-the-less, blinded as he was with blood welling forth, again he cometh on more fiercely than ever, and as a wild boar rusheth from his lay upon a huntsman, so thrust he in with a sweep of Arthur's sword, gripped him by the loins, and forced him to his knees upon the ground. Howbeit, Arthur, nothing daunted, soon slipped from out his clutches, and swiftly bestirring him with his sword, hacked the accursed monster, first in one place and then in another, and gave him no respite until at last he smote him a deadly buffet on the head, and burned the whole breadth of his sword in the brain. The abhorrous beast roared aloud, and dropped with a mighty crash like an oak torn up by the roots in the fury of the winds. Thereupon the king brake out on laughing, bidding Bedivere strike off his head and give it to one of the squires to carry to the camp as a rare sight show for the sightseers. None-the-less, he bade that they who came to look upon it should keep their tongues quiet, inasmuch as never had he foregathered with none other of so puissant hardihood since he slew the giant Ritho upon Mount Erin, that had challenged him to fight with him. For this Ritho had fashioned him a furred cloak of the beards of the kings he had slain, and he had bidden Arthur heedfully to flay off his beard and send it unto him with the skin. In which case, seeing that Arthur did excel other kings, he would sew it in his honour above the other beards on his cloak. Howbeit, in case Arthur refused, Ritho challenged him to fight upon such covenant, that he which should prove the better man of the twain should have the other's beard as well as the furred cloak. So when it came to the scratch, Arthur had the best of it, and carried off Ritho's beard and his cloak, and since thence that time had never had to do with none so strong, until he lighted upon this one, as he is above reported as asserting. After Arthur had won this victory, as I have said, they returned just after daybreak to their tents with their head, crowds coming running up to look upon it, and praising the valour of the man that had delivered the country from so unstable and insatiable a man. But Hoel, grieving over the loss of his niece, bade build a church above her body upon the mount where she lay, the which was named after the damsel's grave, and is called the tomb of Helena unto this day.